Just moments ago, the United States launched direct strikes on Iranian targets in southern Iran. Multiple massive explosions rocked the coastal cities of Bandar Abbas, Jask, Shahid Bahonar Port, and Mount Mubarak. Eyewitnesses reported the ground shaking as powerful blasts lit up the night sky. According to reports, American fighter jets destroyed several Iranian Revolutionary Guard speedboats that were deploying mines in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most vital oil passages in the world. At least 4 Iranian personnel were killed. My friends, this is no minor border clash. The Strait of Hormuz carries 20 million barrels of oil every single day, nearly 1/5 of the entire planet's supply. If this critical waterway is disrupted, the price of gasoline at your local pump could skyrocket to $150 or even $200 a barrel. For those of us living on fixed incomes, Social Security, or pensions, that would be devastating. Higher prices for groceries, heating oil, medicine, and everyday travel would hit American families hard, especially our seniors. What makes this even more troubling is the timing. This strike came just 48 hours before a major peace agreement between the United States, Iran, and Pakistan appeared close to being finalized, a deal that could have reduced tensions and eased sanctions. Peace was almost at hand. Then, suddenly, bombs started falling. Was this a necessary defensive move or a deliberate act to destroy the peace process? In this special report, we're pulling back the curtain on what really happened, the weapons used, who benefits from this chaos, the hidden roles of Israel and Qatar, Trump's uranium demands, and the terrifying consequences for your wallet and America's future. The explosions you're seeing right now may change your life forever. Stay with me. This is going to be intense. Let me walk you through exactly what happened step by step, because the situation is developing fast and there are a lot of moving pieces. Just hours ago, residents along the southern coast of Iran were shaken awake by the sound of massive explosions. According to local Iranian media outlets, Fars and Tasnim, at least 3 powerful blasts were heard in the area around Bandar Abbas. This is one of Iran's most important strategic ports, located right on the northern edge of the Strait of Hormuz. Eyewitnesses reported hearing heavy gunfire followed by the explosions. Ali Hashem, a senior correspondent from Al Jazeera, dropped a major update based on sources close to the Iranian military. He said an Iranian source told him that IRGC naval forces had targeted a vessel at sea. And right after that, American fighter jets struck back at IRGC boats in the Gulf. Several IRGC Navy personnel were killed in that exchange. Now, let's get into the specific locations that were hit. Reports confirm strikes on Bandar Abbas Airport, Shahid Bahonar Port, and likely Mount Mubarak near Jask. These aren't random targets. Bandar Abbas is home to Iran's largest naval base in the south. Shahid Bahonar Port is a major commercial and military hub. And Jask is where Iran has been expanding its missile and naval capabilities in recent years. According to a source close to Iran's parliament speaker, the strikes were precise and devastating. But here's where it gets even more serious. U.S. Central Command, through spokesperson Captain Tim Hawkins, released a statement saying American forces conducted self-defense strikes in southern Iran. They claimed the targets included missile launch sites and Iranian boats that were actively placing mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Let me repeat that, mines, in one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. Senior U.S. officials later told Fox News that 2 IRGC boats were caught in the act of laying mines. American forces eliminated both vessels and also struck a surface-to-air missile site in Bandar Abbas that was reportedly locking onto U.S. warplanes. Folks, this is where the story becomes really concerning. These weren't just small patrol boats. The IRGC's naval speedboats are fast, highly maneuverable, and often equipped with rocket launchers and heavy machine guns. They were deploying advanced mines, including the Maham-3 and rocket-propelled EM-52 mines, which are extremely difficult to detect and can cause catastrophic damage to large tankers. On the American side, the strikes were carried out by fighter jets, most likely F/A-18 Super Hornets from nearby carrier strike groups or possibly F-35S. These jets are capable of delivering precision-guided munitions, including 2,000-pound and even 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs when needed. The fact that they hit a surface-to-air missile site suggests the U.S. wanted to neutralize Iran's ability to shoot back at their aircraft immediately. Clash report added more details, saying joint U.S.-Israeli jets may have been involved in striking 2 IRGC Navy speedboats off Larak Island. At least 4 Iranian personnel were confirmed killed in that specific strike, which happened roughly 48 hours before the full story broke. Iranian media were reportedly under heavy pressure not to publicize the incident too widely at first, apparently to avoid derailing the ongoing negotiations, but the news still got out. Now, let's talk about the scale of this. The Strait of Hormuz is only about 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, but it handles 20 million barrels of oil every single day. That's not just oil, it's liquefied natural gas, chemicals, and goods worth hundreds of billions of dollars annually. If Iran decides to retaliate by mining more of the strait or attacking tankers, we could see insurance rates for ships in the region skyrocket overnight. Some analysts are already warning that a full closure could push global oil prices toward $150, $200 a barrel within days, back to the ground. After the strikes, heavy gunfire was reported near Bandar Abbas. Iranian forces responded with small arms and possibly shore-based defenses. However, so far, Iran has not launched a large-scale counterstrike, at least not yet. U.S. officials are insisting that these actions do not mean the ceasefire is over. They describe the strikes as limited, defensive, and necessary to protect American troops and allies in the region. Jennifer Griffin from Fox News reported that the U.S. military believes the strikes are now over for now. But here's the contradiction that many people are pointing out. How can you call it a ceasefire when you're destroying boats, killing personnel, and hitting military sites on another country's territory? This entire incident happened at an incredibly sensitive time. Just 2 days earlier, there was real momentum toward a peace framework brokered with Pakistan's help. Iran was reportedly willing to make concessions on its nuclear program, including the enriched uranium stockpile, in exchange for sanctions relief. Then suddenly, boom, literal explosions in the night. So what exactly triggered this? Were the IRGC boats really laying mines as a provocative act? Or were they conducting routine defensive maneuvers in their own waters? We may never get a fully clear answer, but the timing has raised serious questions across the region. Now, I'll be honest with you, this feels like a classic escalation cycle we've seen before in the Middle East. One side makes a move, the other responds. And suddenly the path to diplomacy gets much narrower. Now let's talk about the man at the center of all this, Donald Trump, and how his words and actions may have played a major role in blowing up this fragile peace process. Just hours after the strikes, Trump posted a very specific message that caught everyone's attention. He wrote, "The enriched uranium nuclear dust will either be immediately turned over to the United States to be brought home and destroyed, or preferably in conjunction and in coordination with the Islamic Republic of Iran, destroyed in place, witnessed by the Atomic Energy Commission." On the surface, it sounds like a demand about Iran's nuclear program, but many analysts saw something else in that post. Barak Ravid from Axios, who has very good sources inside the Trump administration pointed out that Trump's wording actually shows some flexibility. It seems the U.S. is no longer demanding that Iran completely hand over all its enriched uranium to America. Instead, they're open to destroying it inside Iran under international supervision. That's important because it looked like both sides were getting closer to a real compromise, something that could have led to a broader deal. Iran had reportedly signaled willingness to limit its nuclear activities in exchange for major sanctions relief. Pakistan was acting as the mediator, and things were moving fast. But here's where the story gets messy. Just before the strikes, there was a big rumor circulating that Qatar was ready to give Iran a $12 billion loan as a bridge to help ease the pressure before any formal sanctions relief kicked in. This wasn't supposed to come from U.S. money, but from Qatari funds to help stabilize Iran's economy quickly. However, Dr. Mahed Al-Ansari, the spokesperson for Qatar's prime minister, came out strongly and denied the entire thing. He said these reports are simply not true and are being spread by parties trying to sabotage the deal. He called it a desperate attempt to undermine Qatar's role as a trusted peace facilitator. So who would want to sabotage it? That's the million-dollar question. Let me be straight with you. According to multiple sources, Donald Trump added a major new condition to the deal at the last minute. He reportedly told mediators that any peace agreement with Iran must include Arab nations agreeing to join the Abraham Accords and normalizing relations with Israel. In other words, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other Gulf countries would have to publicly embrace Israel as part of the package. This is a huge sticking point. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar have been very clear. They will not do this unless Israel accepts a two-state solution and recognizes Palestine as a permanent state. Iran has also insisted that any final deal must include security guarantees for the entire region, including Lebanon and its allies like Hezbollah. The timing is what makes this so suspicious. Right when the deal was close, we suddenly see U.S. strikes in the Strait of Hormuz, Israel threatening to expand operations in southern Lebanon, and Trump adding this Abraham Accords requirement. It feels like the classic pattern we've seen before. Every time peace gets close, something blows it up. Let's talk numbers so you understand how big the stakes are. Iran currently holds around 60 kilograms of uranium enriched to near weapons grade levels, enough material that, if further processed, could theoretically be used for nuclear weapons. The international community wants this stockpile destroyed or diluted. Trump wants it gone fast. But for Iran, giving this up without real security guarantees and sanctions relief is extremely difficult. If a deal had been reached, sanctions relief could have brought Iran tens of billions of dollars in frozen assets and new trade. Instead, we're now looking at the opposite direction, possible new escalation. And don't forget the economic shockwave. The Strait of Hormuz handles 20% of the world's oil. Even a partial disruption could add $30 to $60 to the price of a barrel of oil almost overnight. For American drivers, that could mean gas prices jumping towards $6 or $7 per gallon in some states. For Europe and Asia, it would be even worse. China, which buys a huge amount of Iranian and Gulf oil, would be directly hit. Now, let's connect the dots with Israel. Netanyahu and his defense minister were holding meetings around the same time, preparing broader strikes in southern Lebanon. Israeli media reported they're targeting buildings and infrastructure used by Hezbollah. This comes after Israel lost 11 soldiers in just 1 month, mostly to explosive FPV drones. Iran has made it crystal clear, any final peace deal with America must also cover Lebanon and stop Israeli aggression against its allies. But senior U.S. officials leaked to the media that the Trump administration would support Israel escalating in Lebanon. That directly contradicts what Iran is demanding. This creates a massive gap. On one side, you have Iran wanting a comprehensive regional deal. On the other, Trump pushing for Arab-Israeli normalization while backing Israeli military moves. And right in the middle, American fighter jets dropping bombs on Iranian boats. John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, actually criticized Trump on this. He said Trump is so desperate for a deal he can call a victory, especially one that brings down gas prices before elections, that Iran is playing him, buying time and stretching him out. Whether you agree with Bolton or not, one thing is clear. The peace process that seemed so promising 48 hours ago is now hanging by a thread. The military strikes, the new conditions on Abraham Accords, the uranium demands, and the Lebanon escalation all happened almost simultaneously. Was this deliberate sabotage or just terrible timing and miscommunication? Different people will have different answers, but the result is the same. The region is more tense today than it was at the start of the week. Now let's zoom out and look at the other major fire burning at the same time, the escalating situation between Israel and Lebanon. Because what's happening in southern Lebanon is not a separate story. It's directly connected to the explosions in the Strait of Hormuz and the collapsing peace talks with Iran, while the U.S. was striking Iranian boats and missile sites. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was holding high-level meetings with his defense minister. Israeli media, particularly Channel 14, reported that the IDF has prepared broad new strike plans targeting buildings, infrastructure, and positions they claim are being used by Hezbollah. In a video message released shortly after, Netanyahu said the Israeli military is ready to expand operations significantly in southern Lebanon. This comes after what Israeli officials describe as an extremely difficult month in the northern sector. In just the past 30 days, Israel has lost 11 soldiers, most of them killed by explosive FPV drones, small, cheap, but deadly accurate suicide drones that Hezbollah has been using with devastating effect. Let me paint the picture for you. Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful proxy group, has been launching hundreds of attacks across the border. These aren't just random rockets. They're using advanced Iranian-supplied weaponry. We're talking about Feta, 110, and Zelzal ballistic missiles, anti-tank guided missiles like the Cornet, and swarms of FPV drones carrying explosives. These drones are particularly dangerous because they're low cost, hard to detect on radar, and can strike with precision. On the Israeli side, the response has been heavy. The IDF has been conducting airstrikes and artillery barrages almost daily. They're using F-35 stealth fighters, Spike missiles, and Hermes drones to target Hezbollah positions. Israeli officials claim they have eliminated hundreds of Hezbollah fighters and destroyed large weapon caches. But the human cost on the ground is rising fast. Here's the crucial link to our main story. Iran has repeatedly warned that any comprehensive peace agreement with the United States must include Lebanon and its allied groups. In other words, Iran is not willing to make a nuclear deal or accept sanctions relief while Israel continues aggressive operations against Hezbollah. An Iranian official source told Al Jazeera's Ali Hashem that any Israeli attack on Beirut or the southern suburbs would seriously jeopardize the ongoing diplomatic efforts and could derail everything. This puts the Trump administration in a very difficult position. Senior U.S. officials reportedly leaked to the media that America would support further Israeli military escalation in Lebanon. That message directly contradicts what Iran is demanding for a deal. It's like one hand is trying to negotiate peace while the other hand is feeding the fire. Let's talk about the scale of the military power involved. Hezbollah is estimated to have over 150,000 rockets and missiles in its arsenal, one of the largest non-state military forces in the world. Many of these are precision guided thanks to Iranian technology. They also possess advanced anti-ship missiles such as the Yakhant and C-802, which could potentially threaten Israeli naval vessels or even commercial shipping if the conflict widens. Israel, on the other hand, has overwhelming air superiority. With dozens of F-35S and F-15S, they can strike deep inside Lebanon with relative impunity. However, the ground war is much more complicated. Any large-scale invasion of southern Lebanon would likely result in heavy casualties on both sides, as we saw in 2006. The timing of all this is what makes it so explosive. Just 48 hours before the U.S. strikes in Iran, there was genuine momentum in the peace talks. Pakistan had been mediating. Iran was open to discussing its enriched uranium stockpile. Qatar was trying to play a constructive role. And suddenly, we see coordinated pressure. American jets over the Strait of Hormuz and Israeli preparations for wider action in Lebanon. It feels like a deliberate strategy to weaken Iran's negotiating position. By hitting Iran directly and allowing Israel to ramp up pressure on Hezbollah, the message seems to be make more concessions or face consequences on multiple fronts. This multi-front pressure is exactly what Iran has always feared. They view Hezbollah not just as a proxy, but as a critical part of their forward defense strategy. If Hezbollah is significantly degraded, Iran loses a major deterrent against Israel. That's why they insist any final deal must provide security guarantees for the entire axis of resistance, including Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, and militias in Iraq and Syria. Meanwhile, Arab countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar are watching carefully. They have made it clear they will not join the Abraham Accords or normalize with Israel unless there is real progress on the Palestinian issue and a two-state solution. Trump's last-minute demand that Arab nations must accept normalization as part of the Iran deal has only made things more complicated. The economic stakes are enormous too. Any major escalation between Israel and Hezbollah could send oil prices even higher. Remember, we already have the threat in the Strait of Hormuz. If Lebanon explodes, shipping insurance rates in the entire region could triple. Global markets are already nervous. Stock futures dropped after the Hormuz news, and gold, the classic safe haven asset, spiked upward. I want to be very clear here. This is not just about one strike or one border clash. We are looking at a potential regional domino effect. U.S. strikes on Iran. Iran threatens retaliation. Israel expands in Lebanon. Hezbollah responds with heavier attacks, possible involvement of other Iranian proxies. The entire chain reaction could spiral very quickly. And sitting in the middle of all this is Donald Trump, who says he wants a deal, yet his administration appears to be supporting military actions that make that deal almost impossible. So, how are the different players reacting to this sudden explosion of violence in the Strait of Hormuz? Let's break down the responses from all the major sides and then go deeper into what this really means strategically. First, Iran. Despite being directly attacked, their public response has been surprisingly measured. When asked by journalists why Iran wasn't responding more aggressively to U.S. strikes and Trump's statements, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson gave a calm but firm answer. Here's what he said. Play clip. Why are you not responding to the U.S. media reports? I believe we have more important works to do than responding to the U.S. president's posts or other malicious media campaigns. We are working in order to arrive at the best solutions to maintain and safeguard the interests of our country. At the same time, we respond to the enemy's aggression accordingly, as was the habit in the past. This is classic Iranian diplomacy. They're refusing to be baited into emotional reactions or Twitter wars. Instead, they're signaling two things. One, they're focused on the long game and protecting their national interests. And two, They will retaliate, but on their own terms and timing. This restraint is strategic. Iran knows that a knee-jerk reaction right now could completely destroy the remaining chances of a peace deal. Now, on the American side, we have a very different voice. John Bolton, Donald Trump's former national security advisor. Bolton has always been a hardliner on Iran, and moments ago he delivered a scathing assessment. Play clip. He thinks everybody wants to make a deal on just about anything. That's not what these people are into. Trump is so palpably desperate to have a deal that he can declare to be a victory, and that lowers prices of gasoline. And they're playing him on that. They're stretching him out. They're buying time. Bolton is essentially accusing Trump of being too eager for a quick political win, making him vulnerable to manipulation by Iran. Whether you like Bolton or not, his words reveal a deep split inside the American foreign policy establishment. There are those who want a deal, and those who believe Iran only understands force. Let's go deeper into the military reality on the ground, because this isn't just political theater. Advanced weapon systems are involved. On the Iranian side, the IRGC Navy has developed what experts call asymmetric warfare capabilities. They're fast attack speedboats, the ones hit by U.S. Jets are equipped with heavy machine guns, rocket launchers, and can deploy sophisticated mines like the EM-52 rocket-propelled mines in Maham 3 systems. These mines can sink or severely damage oil tankers in minutes. Iran also has thousands of ballistic missiles, including the Shahab 3, Sejil, and Karamshar series, many of which can reach U.S. bases across the region. Their drone fleet, especially the Shahed 136 suicide drones, has proven extremely effective in recent conflicts. The United States, meanwhile, brings overwhelming technological superiority. The strikes were likely carried out by F/A-18 Super Hornets or F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters launched from aircraft carriers in the Arabian Sea. These jets use precision-guided munitions, possibly including Joint Direct Attack Munitions, JDAMs, and AGM. 8/8 harm anti-radiation missiles to take out the surface-to-air radar sites. If deeper bunkers were targeted, they may have deployed GBU-28 or GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, bunker buster bombs weighing up to 30,000 pounds. This mismatch in capabilities explains why Iran is choosing restraint for now. They cannot win a direct, conventional war against the U.S., so they rely on guerrilla tactics, swarming boats, sea mines, closing the strait, and activating proxy forces across the region. Here's a shocking number for you. If Iran decides to fully retaliate by mining the Strait of Hormuz and attacking shipping, global oil supply could drop by 20 million barrels per day almost immediately. That's roughly 21% of the entire world's daily oil consumption. Analysts at Goldman Sachs and other institutions warn that sustained disruption could send oil prices to $180, $250 per barrel within weeks, triggering a global recession. The economic ripple effects would be massive. American consumers would see gas prices surge past $6, $8 per gallon in many states. Europe, already struggling with energy costs, would face another crisis. China and India, which import huge amounts of oil through this route, would suffer the most. Now, let's analyze the bigger strategic picture. This incident follows a familiar pattern we've seen repeatedly in the last few years. Every time negotiations with Iran approach a breakthrough, whether mediated by Oman, Qatar, or now Pakistan, military action suddenly appears. First, it was the killing of General Soleimani, then the attacks on oil facilities, and now strikes in the Strait of Hormuz right when a deal seemed close. The key conflict remains the scope of the agreement. Iran wants a comprehensive regional deal that includes security guarantees for Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and other allies. Trump, influenced heavily by Israel and Saudi Arabia, wants Arab countries to normalize relations with Israel through the Abraham Accords as a condition for any Iran deal. These two visions are currently incompatible. Qatar's strong denial of the $12 billion loan rumor shows they are trying to protect their role as a neutral mediator. At the same time, they're warning that certain parties, possibly hardliners in Israel or Washington, are actively trying to sabotage diplomacy. The danger now is miscalculation. Iran has already warned that any major Israeli attack on Beirut or southern Lebanon would kill the diplomatic track entirely. Yet Israel continues preparations for expanded operations. The U.S. says it supports Israel's right to defend itself. This creates a dangerous triangle. U.S. strikes Iranian restraint, Israeli escalation, potential Iranian retaliation through proxies. If this spiral continues, we could see a multi-front conflict involving direct U.S., Iran clashes, Israel-Hezbollah ground fighting, and Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping. The human cost would be enormous. We've already seen 4 Iranian personnel killed in the latest strikes. Dozens more could die if things escalate further. On the positive side, the fact that Iran has not launched a massive counterattack yet suggests they still see value in keeping the diplomatic door open. Their spokesperson emphasized they are a cultured, educated, and developed people who focus on real solutions rather than reacting to every provocation. However, their patience is not unlimited. As they said, they will respond to aggression, as was the habit in the past. We've seen what that looks like. Precise missile strikes on U.S. bases, attacks on Saudi oil facilities, and disruption of shipping. In summary, the reactions reveal deep divisions. Iran is playing it cool and strategic. Trump's administration is sending mixed signals, talking peace while conducting strikes. Israel is pushing for military advantage, and independent voices like Bolton are warning that Trump's desperation for a deal is making him vulnerable. This is one of the most complex and dangerous situations in the Middle East in recent years. The next 72 hours will be critical. Will cooler heads prevail and salvage the peace talks? Or will the explosions in Bandar Abbas mark the beginning of a much wider and more destructive conflict? Let's be honest with each other. What we witnessed in the last 48 hours is a textbook case of a peace process being deliberately sabotaged at the very moment it was about to succeed. Just 2 days ago, Iran, the United States, and Pakistan were making real progress toward a framework agreement. Sanctions relief was on the table. Iran was showing flexibility on its enriched uranium stockpile. Qatar was working quietly behind the scenes as a trusted mediator. And then suddenly American fighter jets were dropping bombs on IRGC boats and missile sites in Bandar Abbas and Jask. The timing is too perfect to be a coincidence. U.S. Central Command calls it self-defense. They say Iranian boats were laying mines. But think about this. These strikes happened exactly when negotiations were reaching a critical stage. This is the same pattern we've seen before when Oman was mediating, when Europe was trying, and now with Pakistan. Every single time diplomacy gets close, military action appears like clockwork. Donald Trump says he wants a deal. He posts about enriched uranium being destroyed under international supervision. On paper, that sounds reasonable. But at the same time, he added a massive new condition at the last minute. Arab nations must join the Abraham Accords and normalize with Israel. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and others have already said clearly they will not do that without a genuine two-state solution for Palestine. Iran has also demanded that any real agreement must protect its allies in Lebanon, especially Hezbollah. Instead of compromise, we got bombs. We got Israeli preparations for wider operations in southern Lebanon. We got leaks from the Trump administration supporting further escalation against Hezbollah. And we got 4 Iranian personnel killed in the Strait of Hormuz. This is not how someone who truly wants peace behaves. Let's talk about the human and economic cost. The Strait of Hormuz carries 20 million barrels of oil every single day, 20% of global supply. If this conflict spirals and the strait is even partially disrupted, we're looking at oil prices shooting toward $180 to $250 per barrel. Gas prices in America could hit $7 to $9 per gallon. Europe would face energy shortages again. China and India would suffer massive economic pain. Millions of ordinary people around the world would pay the price through higher inflation, lost jobs, and economic instability. Meanwhile, on the military side, we saw advanced weapons in action. American FA, 18S, and possibly F-35S, delivering precision strikes, IRGC speedboats armed with rocket launchers and EM-52 mines, surface-to-air missile systems lighting up the night. This is not a small border incident. This is great power competition playing out in one of the most critical choke points on Earth. Iran's response so far has been remarkably restrained. Their foreign ministry spokesperson made it clear they have more important things to do than respond to every provocation or social media post. They will protect their interests, but they're choosing strategy over emotion. That shows maturity. But their patience has limits. History tells us that when pushed too far, Iran responds asymmetrically through proxies, missiles, and disruption of oil flows. John Bolton's criticism of Trump is particularly telling. The former national security advisor says Trump is desperate for a deal he can call a victory, one that lowers gas prices and looks good politically. According to Bolton, Iran is playing him, buying time. Whether Bolton is right or not, the perception of weakness and inconsistency from the American side is damaging trust. And then there's the spectacle happening back in Washington. Construction crews building a UFC fighting stage on the White House South Lawn while the Middle East burns. While explosions echo across the Strait of Hormuz and soldiers die in Lebanon, the optics are terrible. It makes the entire administration look detached from the gravity of the situation. Here's my strong take. This is sabotage. Powerful forces, hardliners in Israel, certain factions inside the Trump administration, and others who benefit from continued conflict do not want to deal with Iran. A successful agreement would reshape the Middle East. It would reduce tensions, open up trade, and weaken the justification for endless military spending. But permanent peace is bad for certain industries and certain political agendas. The Abraham Accords push, the sudden strikes, the Lebanon escalation, the timing of the uranium demands, all of it points to a coordinated effort to kill the deal before it can be born. We've seen this movie before. Diplomacy gets close, then boom, crisis. Lives are lost, markets panic, and the cycle of hatred and distrust continues for another decade. The world cannot afford another major war in the Middle East. With global tensions already high, a conflict involving the United States, Iran, Israel, and multiple proxy groups could easily spiral into something far larger. The human suffering would be immense. The economic damage would be felt in every country on earth. Yet there is still a narrow window for sanity. Iran has not closed the door completely. Qatar is still trying to mediate. Even Trump's post showed some flexibility on the uranium issue. If cooler heads prevail in the next few days, perhaps the damage can be contained. But right now, the trajectory is dangerous. To all of you watching, this is why staying informed matters. This is why we need independent voices that don't just repeat official statements, but connect the dots and ask the hard questions. The mainstream media will often spin this as simple self-defense or Iranian aggression. But as you've seen in this report, the reality is much more complex and far more disturbing. The explosions in Bandar Abbas were not just military targets being hit. They were a message that some prefer endless conflict over difficult compromises. A message that peace in the Middle East remains extremely fragile. As we finish this report, I want you to think about what kind of future we want. One defined by permanent war, rising oil prices, and broken diplomacy, or one where serious negotiations can actually succeed and bring stability. The choice isn't just up to leaders in Washington, Tehran, or Tel Aviv. It's also up to us, the people who watch, who share information, who demand better from our governments. Thank you for staying with me through this full breakdown. If you found this analysis valuable, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. We're pushing toward bigger and deeper coverage, and your support makes that possible. Drop a comment below. Who do you think is really sabotaging this peace deal? Trump, Netanyahu, or forces behind the scenes? I read every comment. If you want to support independent media and get access to exclusive content, early videos, and custom emojis, consider becoming a paid member or gifting a membership to someone who needs to see this kind of reporting. The situation is still developing rapidly. I'll be back with updates as soon as there are major developments. Until then, stay informed, stay skeptical, and stay safe. We'll see you in the next one.